right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Conscience of Kansas radio program. My name is Paul A. Ibbetson, and my single mission on this program, other than to tell you the conservative truth, is to line up some of the best guests on the dial, and we deliver every single week. In the second half of the program, we're going to have our next guest, and we're going to get right to it because we have so much to talk about. Our second guest, Jerome Corsi, is a staff reporter for WorldNet Daily. He received his PhD from Harvard University in political science in 1972, and he has written many influential books, including the number one New York Times bestseller, Unfit for Command, and his new book is The Late Great USA. Jerry Corsi, we'd like to welcome you to the Conscience of Kansas radio program.
Great to be with you, Paul. Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. And I tell you, the first thing I want to do on this program is thank you personally for being a part of the book project, Unfit for Command. That if we look at, as a book writer, I write books and the hope of a book writer is that your book will be read, that your book will have an impact, at least from my point of view. And if there was a seminal book from 2004 that was read by the nation, I think had an impact on our thinking, it was this Unfit for Command. And it not only, I think, lifted the veil on democratic trickery that was taking place, but it also gave voice to the military and to a portion of the military, being Vietnam vets, that are just seldom voiced. And so I want to thank you personally for that book.
Well, it was a great honor to work on that book with the Swift Boat veterans and my co-author, John O'Neill. And, it's a major effort to go through a political campaign the way we did. I mean, there was a struggle against John Kerry, but thank you for your kind comments, and I'm honored to have written the book, and honored to have worked with John O'Neill, my great co-author.
Well, and of course, John O'Neill was a naval officer himself and did great service other than the book. So we appreciate his work as well. But you have been a part of so many fine collaborations. And another one that I'd be remiss for not mentioning along the way would be your work with Jim Gilchrist of the Minutemen. And in the book, Minutemen, The Battle to Secure America's Borders, I know Jim Gilchrist. We've had the honor of having him on this program. He is a patriot, and I am extremely vested in this battle to secure our borders. And the Minutemen, this book really shined the light on not only describing, in my opinion, who the Minutemen are, what they're about, but it documented the breakdown we have going with our border security and what the ramifications are of having that complete breakdown. Could you tell our Conscience of Kansas listeners a little bit about that book?
Well, it was also a great honor to work with Jim Gilchrist. Like John O'Neill, Jim Gilchrist is a veteran of the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. Jim Gilchrist was in the Marines. He fought in combat for, I believe, 13 months. I mean, it was remarkable that he came out. There was tremendous casualties in his unit. They fought in the northern part of Vietnam, right at the height of the war, going from hill to hill, fighting the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army. And Jim is very modest about, just like John O'Neill. Both gentlemen are very reluctant to talk much about their experience. I did interview Jim Gilchrist at length and wrote about it in the book. The battle to secure America's borders is essentially, dispelling this idea that the border is wide open because it's only, people coming across that want to look for jobs. There's a lot of Mexico's underclass coming across the border, largely because Mexico won't take care of its own underclass.
Right.
Won't work to provide jobs for its own people. Wants to keep its, oligarchical structure in place, where the few haves in Mexico don't have any intent to share with the have-nots, mm-hmm. Or to create a business climate or structure which would allow wealth to percolate down to the working classes in Mexico. And across the border are also coming drugs, We have a major drug war going on. We now have this Merida initiative, the Merida initiative. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that, but it is an initiative to put something like $1 billion into Mexico's military to help fight the drug war, which seems like a losing cause, because Mexico's military has all too often been part of the drug problem, not part of the drug solution. And we see these criminal gangs like MS-13 coming across the border. So people have got to realize that a wide-open border is an invitation to criminals to exploit the United States for criminal purposes.
Absolutely. And, we've been talking there's a tendency, and this is why I think a book such as the one you wrote with Jim Gilchrist, Minutemen, The Battle to Secure America's Borders, is important. Is a tendency, if you're not in Texas or California or Arizona, if you're not in a border state, people can easily be duped into apathy, thinking, well, it's not really our problem. We're not a border state. We're not really affected. And when that is the furthest thing from the truth. And Jerry, I'm a former Kansas chief of police, and I used to patrol and assist the highway patrol, and I got to see the impact of illegal immigration here in Kansas.
Well, that's right. And Paul, I show that for instance, MS-13 is now something like 2,800 American communities. I mean, that's throughout the country. They're in, something like 43 states. And the book is very thoroughly researched. It's very carefully documented. I did a lot of interviews with people who have been in this field for a long time. I tell the story of Deputy David March, who was shot and killed by an illegal alien. He was a California, I believe, Los Angeles Sheriff's Office deputy who did a routine traffic stop. And an illegal alien, armed, got out and murdered him. Cold blood. Shot him a couple of times when he was down on the ground to make sure he was dead.
Yeah.
Fled back into Mexico. And it's just been recently, this has been, years after the crime, that Mexico finally admitted, with all the pressure placed, to extradite his killer to face justice. And that'll still be a battle, because if he's condemned to the death penalty, I'm sure Mexico
Absolutely.
And the United Nations will get right back involved again to try to protect the criminal.
Absolutely. And it's a situation every time someone is victimized here in this country, whether it be a police officer dying in the line of duty, whether it be someone who is raped or murdered, or simply all the way down to property crime and the expenses on the infrastructure of our hospitals and schools and et cetera. These are things that are avoidable. They're not happenstance things that you just have to say, oh, well, that's a part of life. This is something that our government officials have made a conscious decision to avoid dealing with. And so forth, from there, the citizens have to take the brunt of that, and it's inexcusable.